big, scary monster in the closet is the way that most students think of the SAT. It's ugly, and it's frightening, and you're not quite sure what it is. And it can scare you, and your teachers have probably perpetuated the rumor, or your parents, or worse, your friends. So taking a look at shedding some light on that monster who's hiding under your bed. The SAT. Well, unlike the monster under your bed, it does really exist. It is a test, and you have to take it if you're planning to go to college. So let's look at where did this monster come from and see if we can't start making friends with it. The SAT is a piece of a puzzle, and that puzzle is your college application. It's not all that you need to be able to get into college. It's just a small piece of it. Hopefully that will help you alleviate some of your fear that it is going to make or break your world. The application process does include your grades and transcripts from school, test scores from the SAT, tests like it, essays that you might write, and more information about your other achievements. So, this test, not quite as scary as it might sound. Let's find out a little bit more about what it looks like. Our next big question is, what does it test? And how much time do I have to accomplish it? This test is going to cover 3 categories, 10 sections, and take almost 4.5 hours. The 3 categories that you're going to have on the SAT are reading, writing, and math. The critical reading and the math pieces of this test are both the same. There are 3 sections. Those sections are broken down. You have 2 25-minute sections of reading and a 20-minute section of reading. And you'll have 2 25-minute sections of math and a 20-minute section of math. Then the last piece is the writing. And the writing, because writing includes now this handwriting exam that they give you, it's actually an essay test. No handwriting involved in terms of can you write or not write. It's how can you get your thoughts across, because it's a critical thinking piece. That's going to be 1 essay piece for 25 minutes, 1 grammar piece for 25 minutes, and a 3rd grammar piece for 25 minutes. So, if you've been doing the math and paying attention about what is on the SAT, those 3 categories and 10 sections, you might be wondering where that 10th section went. 3 reading, 3 writing, and 3 math make 9 sections. So where'd that 10th section come from? This is the scary part of the test. There is 1 more 25-minute section on the test that is always included, and I like to call it slave labor. This is an experimental section. What they're going to do is give you one of the 3 categories, either reading, writing, or math, and they're sampling questions on you. You'll learn how the SAT is very predictable as we go on through this episode and this course, and this is how they make it so predictable. They're going to use you taking their questions and answering them to determine whether they're easy, medium, or hard. And they're going to use them on your future students, your friends, your younger siblings. So there's 25 minutes of slave labor involved in the SAT. All in all, what that sums up to is 3 hours and 45 minutes of filling in bubbles and answering questions. Why did I say 4.5 hours to begin with? Because when you go to take the SAT that Saturday morning, you're going to have to get there, find your classroom, sit down, get organized. Then they're going to give you instructions before each of your sections, making sure you know just how to fill in that bubble. And they're also going to give you 2 very generous 5-minute breaks. So in that 4.5 hours, 5 minutes twice to do anything you need to do, stretch, bathroom, whatever it is, just wake up, get yourself refreshed. So it's a big test, it's a scary monster, marathon of a thing, but as we begin to shed more light on it, you'll see it's not so bad. Which brings us, as we talk about these bubble sheets that you have to fill in for the test, the dreaded bubbles, how is this test scored is our last question. The way this test is scored is where most of the rumors come into play. You hear about things like you get points just for signing your name, or it's worth thousands of points, or they'll penalize you if you can't get anything wrong, all these kinds of rumors. Well, let's get down to the bottom of that, because like our monster actually existing, there's a little bit of truth. And once you learn this piece, you'll be able to relax and decide how your strategy is going to work best for you. This test is all multiple choice with 5 answer choices for every multiple choice question that exists, an A through E option, with a couple of little exceptions. The 2 exceptions to multiple choice are the essay, which is going to be handwritten, and 10 whole math questions. Those 10 math questions are going to be student-produced responses. And that's sort of this silly piece that you see in your bubble sheet. And you'll go into these in more depth later. But you don't actually choose A through E. You're going to choose whatever the correct answer is and fill it in. So that is not a multiple choice piece. 10 out of everything. So the good news is with the multiple choice, the answers are there on the test for you. Now what they do in the scoring that's unique is they do give you a point for getting your answers correct. If you bubble in the right answer, you get that point, just like at school. If you don't answer it, obviously you can't earn any points if you're not answering the question, so you get no points if you don't answer it. But this test does penalize students who guess or who are lazy and don't bother to think through their answers critically. They're key to the test. So to penalize you, they deduct 1/4 of a raw point from your score if you bubble in the wrong answer. And that's the thing that scares most students. Not used to being penalized for getting a wrong answer. But one of the things to know is that the way these points add up is not that they're going to be 800 questions on a section. Instead, they're going to count them in categories. When they go to do the scoring for this test, the final results come out in the hundreds. You've heard the final score results for some of your friends, and a top score on this test is 2,400 points. But it gets broken down. There's a minimum of 200 points and a maximum of 800 points in any section of the test. 800 for reading, 800 for writing, and 800 for math. Those raw points that we were talking about get calculated based on a curve. So to score a perfect score on the test, technically, you need to answer most or all of the problems right. And if you leave any blank, and everyone else leaves some blank, technically you can score an 800 and still not have answered every question on the test. However, if you chose to answer every single question incorrectly, which would be a challenge to do, they had to have a way to penalize you. So that's where that base of 200 comes from. Technically, that would have to be a score of 0. Because if you didn't answer anything, you would score no points. And that's that 200 you get for signing your name. Once you've started the test, they won't take your score below 200. So it's nice to know there's a baseline. You can't score a 0 on this test. There are no grades involved with a 200 to 800. And the way that they calculate the total score is to add up how you did in each of the 3 sections. And depending which college you want to go to, the colleges will look at different sections differently.